So this is, thank you very much.
Don't get off.
No one wants that. No one wants that. So we'd like to begin by acknowledging the Yagara people, traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders, past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are here today. So we're going to reverse the order a little bit. Usual thing, this is the organising group. Not everyone is here tonight. For those that are, please come and say hi. We're all very nice people. A quick word about AWS Community Day Australia. We probably heard about this already, but we have this annual event. It's Australia-wide. It's happening on the 16th of October. We have speakers and workshops happening from all over the country, including a few international speakers. It'll be held at the Brisbane Convention and Exhibition Centre. It is not a commercial kind of event. It's all about builders, people who are building on AWS, whether you are a networking guy or an AI guy or anything in between. There's going to be something interesting to talk about and learn on the day. So please take a snapshot. Please watch your LinkedIn feeds and join us. There's a nominal fee of $20, but it's really just to stop people taking all the tickets and then not showing up. If anyone has any questions, please do come and have a yarn with me or any of the other organisers. We'd love to see you there. We'd like to promote some of the other meetup groups around the place. I could not find a date for the next Gold Coast user group, but it's usually fairly early in June. This QR code will take you to their meetup page. Nathan Chung has started this Cafe Cursor Brisbane. I haven't been along yet, but I understand that it's going to be a ton of fun. If you're interested in AI-powered IDEs and that kind of thing, please go along. And Milo's here from the AI Paper Reading Club. So our next event is on the 16th of June. I will be talking this time, so please do come along. Hopefully it will be entertaining. If you miss any meetups or if you would like to stay in contact, please join our Slack channel. For me, I think the most valuable thing is staying on top of all the AWS announcements. Almost every day something new is going on, so it's great to stay on top of that. RBK religiously records our meetups and posts them to the YouTube channel. Sometimes there is a little bit of a delay because he does have a life, but we get there eventually. Call for speakers. We are always looking for new speakers. Someone commented earlier that they were surprised that their non-AI talk was accepted. So I want to hasten to say that we are very non-AI friendly. In fact, amongst the organising committee, there's a genuine feeling that we have too much AI presentations here. And I confess that I'm partly responsible for that, being an AI kook myself. So if you are at all interested in presenting, please get in touch with us. Please scan or please come and have a chat with us. We are genuinely beginner friendly. I gave my first talk here about 2 years ago. So it's been really helpful to get used to talking about technical topics in a public speaking type environment. Whether you're a uni student, a career switcher, or a seasoned principal, we would love to have you present. All right, next, I said too much AI. Next month, we will be talking about OpenClaw on AWS. I have to say, while I am a total AI kook, this is the one thing I can't get super excited about, but I seem to be the only one. The amount of hype about OpenClaw is shocking. So yeah, please do join us. I'm sure it'll be a really interesting event.
Will there be mud crab?
Good question. Probably not. But you're welcome to bring your own if you want. Not sure what AWS will say about it, but...
I am trying to figure out catering, but lobster was a bit hard.
Totally. Doesn't fit within the budget. All right, first up we have Mark Promnitz, who's going to be talking to us about what's new on AWS. Thanks, Mark.
So kind of like Michael just talked about how, we're very beginner friendly here at the user group. I also had my first community talk as part of this user group, probably about 13 years ago. Been around for a while. So I got given the task of doing the What's New session for tonight approximately 40 minutes ago. So I've pulled this together in that time. And I'm kind of going to be flying by the seat of my pants as we talk through this. I do have a few apologies up front. One of the first things we're going to talk about is AI. That's when the slide's supposed to progress. It's a very interesting space, and I'm genuinely excited about AI in general, just tech in general, because we've never had so much tech and capability in our hands today, right? It is one of those foundational things which is legitimately changing how we work, and love it or not, it's kind of here to stay, and it's really defining a lot of the things we do. Some of the things we have on platform today, new things that have happened in the last month, we have the cloud platform available now on AWS, so you can purchase it via AWS, and you can use effectively that cloud platform today via AWS, right? Just like you would normally have got it through Anthropic directly. Not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm going to keep rolling through this. I have a lot of slides. Bedrock now also has open AI models available. You can also get codecs and managed agents. This is in limited preview at the moment, but this will roll out further. So effectively now through Bedrock, you can get Anthropic, you can get OpenAI's model, you can get all of the other models, you can get Kimi, you can get Mistral, you can get all the models that you want through Bedrock today on AWS.
Is that available in AP Southeast too?
Not yet. Limited preview tends to be very limited. But yes, I do expect that to fully roll out and be available across lots of different regions. And across the years, the 13 odd years I've been doing this, we've pushed very strongly to have Sydney represented as one of the first regions where a lot of those things land. So I do expect that to roll out here. Around Amazon Bedrock Agent Core, we have a lot of different announcements, a lot of capability in that space around building agents. One of the interesting ones that I saw when I was quickly rolling through the list of announcements that happened, there was a lot of announcements last month, it was this one, with Agent Core Identity providing the ability to store identities and help your agents with their identity, right? Whether they have permissions to be their own person and their own virtual person inside your company and reach out with their own credentials, or act on your behalf. You need to be able to give them a secure space where they can store that, they can retrieve that, where they can do OAuth flows and they can get all the different bits back. That's where identity fits, and it can now do on behalf of token exchange, so it can now act on behalf of you, right? Hence why that's kind of cool. I'll keep moving. Runtime, so this is where we can actually run those agents that you build, regardless of what framework or model harness you're using. Now supports being able to hook in S3 files and EFS. So you can bring your own data into those environments. Before they were kind of isolated little environments, you can now hook in different things, so you can read from existing data sets and the like. Interesting, that also gives you a nice persistence layer between those invocations and different things. Just be careful what you share if you're not supposed to be sharing things. On to the next bit. Agents can now transact, right? So sometimes you have agents or interactions with MCP servers or whatever where you actually want to have a monetary guardrail in front of that. So hey, I have a data API where I'm trying to open it up for agents, but I want to put a small transaction cost so that you can pull this data from there. Because I have very, very tight secret information about cats. So hey, you want to access my cat information? The agents can now transact. They integrate with Coinbase and Stripe for a lot of that underlying tech and the wallet transactions and the like. But we can now do payments and things agent to agent using the services like this. One of the first to market. And it's a pretty incredible use case to see that actually working in the wild. Cool, business applications. You might think I'm done talking about AI, but no, we have this product. It's called Amazon Quick. It's Quick Suite, and it's Quick Site, and it's Quick many different things, but it's Quick. And Quick, if you haven't used it in the last while and you know it from years yonder, it was always the BI dashboarding tooling capability. Now it's a lot more than that, and we've put a lot of investment into it lately, so much so that I cut out slides. We've released a lot of capabilities around doing research, which is actually quite powerful. If you haven't tried it, go give that a shot. We have Power Automate style stuff in there, so you can automate business processes. There's flows in there, so you can have a lot of recurring tasks happening for your business users. But we also have Quick Desktop, which surprisingly, because we've also been the company that's done Chime, have released a really good desktop application. For your users to get in there, use AI, and connect it up to a lot of different things. So we have, Amazon Desktop still uses that same subscription for your Quick, and all the cloud capabilities, but it brings a model to your desktop, to your business users, lets them connect it up to OneDrive, SharePoint, Outlook. Pick your poison. There's a lot of different things. It's all built-in connectors, so you just go, yes, I want to turn that on. I'll authenticate it and do all the things. And it does a lot of great summarization, chat capabilities, and just in terms of bringing that to bear within your organization, including document generation and the like. I would have tried to use that for this, but I just did not have the time to wait for it to go through and generate and do the process, right? It would have come out with a PowerPoint presentation. It wouldn't be as branded as nicely as the one I'd built previously, which helped me with this piece. So it does document visual creation in chat. It also includes Google Workspace, Zoom, Airtable now. We have that desktop application I was talking about. It's on Mac and Windows, which is nice. It's in preview, but definitely have a look at it. It's one of those genuine ones where I was like, oh, this is actually quite useful to use, and nice in the desktop. We also got natural language, right? So you can actually build applications in Quick today. So as a business user, you can type in natural language, hey, I need an app which does this. It builds out a web app, and you can use it within Quick and iterate. Seen a lot of business users get a long way, right, in that space to prove our business value effectively, right? It's like, hey, I can do all these things now. Great, let's take that and turn that into a real app. I've seen that flow happening in a few different customers.
Mark, have you used that at all? Like the creation of the web apps? I'm just curious about that.
I've run it through in a few demo stuff, but nothing real solid. Like some customers have used it a whole bunch more than I have, though.
Does it use or follow AWS best practices and stuff when it's creating that? Like, does it do?
Yeah, so it's not spinning up AWS resources or anything like that in the background. It's all web stuff within Quick on the data sets and things that are available, right? So it kind of limits the scope of what you can do to what data sets you've got available and what you can do in a browser-ish style environment. But yeah, obviously proving out value from a business user. Hey, I want an app which helps me do my calculations or something this way. Yeah, absolutely, right? And then you kind of take that further and turn it into something where we go down that route. Again, we have Quick showing up everywhere. There's extensions for Excel, PowerPoint, Word. There's a lot of investment going in this space. So again, I guess the messaging here really is just reevaluate it if you haven't looked at it and you're in that space looking for something in this space. And again, Quick will generate dashboards from natural language prompts. You can get generative AI everywhere, just helping you to accelerate and get things faster. All right, kind of done. You think we're done. Cloud financial management. There's not a lot. There's one slide. You can now take some of the reports from our cost optimization hub and extract it as CSV. You think I wouldn't be able to tie that back to AI, but you can take that AI and put it into the CSV file, put it into your AI, and ask it to do things for you. So help me action and recommend and do all these results. So CSV exports can be cool. We can make them AI as well.
You can put it in Quick and get it to build a cost management.
You can. We also have cost management solutions in Quick already. So if you're looking for cloud intelligence dashboards, absolutely install those. Those are gold mine for very cheap. Can get you a long way. Have a talk about that later. In the container space, actually non-AI now. Talking about Carpenter is one of our controllers which helps to spin up and control your EC2 instances sitting underneath your pods. It now supports zonal recovery through that application recovery controller when it's doing a zonal shift. So essentially, hey, there's a failure or we've got some recovery tooling around that. How do we shift workloads around zones? We've now got support for how do we spin up and spin down workloads a lot nicer. So just some integration points there. Onto databases, keeping it real quick. We now support Valkey 9 in Elasticache. You probably don't care, but Valkey is a really nice Redis replacement style cache. Definitely a place where I'll be using that. All right, developer tools. This is probably for some of those that use it and work in that space a lot. SAM now supports the WebSocket API, so API Gateway. There always was a little bit of a gap, but SAM can now help you, deploy those WebSocket APIs. We also have the agent toolkit for AWS, so it helps agents build things more effectively by giving them the skills and the best practices and the curated knowledge for them to pull in and use in the agent context. So regardless of what agent you're using, integrating with something like this will help you bring in the right knowledge at the right time. and help the developers implement better, right? As opposed to using just your models-based learning. Obviously, it's going to try and do best case it can, but you give that same agent the same prompt 3 different times, you get 3 different results. We all know that's non-deterministic. By passing it down this route and saying, hey, actually, here's the best practices, some skills you can use and all that, you increase the chances of getting a better result in line with best practices. Talking a lot. Here we go. We also have an MCP server. That MCP server's been around for a while now. It's just gone GA, which means it's fully supported and it's there. It's one of those things which is a really good way of accessing the AWS documentation. If you're using any AI agents today and you're not also saying, hey, by the way, please reference the AWS documentation for how to do this and all that, you're missing a trick. So when we're trying to, with the AWS agents, trying to really ground that in facts and reduce the hallucinations, pointing it at the documentation, it's pretty much the ground source truth as to how this should be implemented. And sometimes in the docs, there's that one line, which means you can't do it that way. By having it read the docs and do that, it definitely helps improve your results and get to an outcome faster in that space, using less tokens and the like. Using the MCP server for that is absolutely a fast way of getting it. Faster than just going and reading the AWS documentation like via a web search, because you're also putting back all the HTML stuff around it and having to pass through all of that and obviously more tokens. Doing it this way will trim that down and get you to a faster, more succinct response. All right. This one's nice. It's probably an obscure one for you, but if you've ever had to reference stack outputs across regions or across different things, we've got more capability in that space now. So we can do cross-account region references and use that get stack output command to be able to pull that stuff in.
Don't use that yet.
Sorry?
Don't use that yet.
Don't use it yet?
Because CGK wraps get stack output in event select, event split, and other functions, and get stack output doesn't support that yet, only verbatim.
Yeah, okay. So essentially, as things come out in the release, not everything supports everything all at the same time. So sometimes it pays to lag adopting new stuff as it releases, effectively. Cool. Migration and modernization. We have a lot of customers still migrating, a lot of customers modernizing more so as well, around we got old legacy tech, how do we do it? And again, here we go, AI. So AWS Transform has AI integrated into it, right? It's not all AI, but we do have a lot of AI enablement to help customers modernize their stacks, whether it be .NET code moving up the versions, Java code moving up the versions, Node.js moving up versions, or just different implementation things and all that. Transform now allows you to essentially containerize as you're doing it. So it's a re-platforming capability as well. So you might have had application running on EC2 or an application running on a bare metal server back in your data center as part of the transformation piece. We've got the capability in there now to go, cool, let's Dockerize that as part of the transform and actually run that as a Docker container at the other end. It's nice, it can definitely help in that space. Things we've been doing manually outside of that, right? We also have agents now available in our different tooling. So Kiro, Claude, Cursor, Codex, pick your poison. But effectively, by bringing some of these agents and the essentially MCP tooling and capabilities and skills around that, it's how do we write things like AWS Transform custom and our custom blueprints and our different specs as we're going through doing the transforms, bringing a bit more of that knowledge to those agents so they can write those better. And so essentially, how do we go through and progress those? So if you're in the space where you're using any of that tooling, definitely have a look at these agents and just that toolkit to help power some of those outcomes that you're getting through there. Again, this is the same thing again, it's just for Visual Studio. For some reason, we decided that that was a separate announcement. Cool, onto the networking content and delivery space. There's a few things in here. I don't have a slide for it, so I'm just going to pitch it. There is an interconnect between AWS and GCP that has been talked about for a while. It was in preview. It's now gone GA. It's a fully supported thing. We also have a connect across to Oracle Cloud, which is in preview. So we got one out of preview. We got one into preview. But essentially, the cross-cloud interconnects direct as a vendor-supported thing from AWS. It's becoming more of a reality. Right, onto the next piece. CloudFront supports WebSocket connections back to VPC origins. So if you've ever had to route your WebSockets through CloudFront before, it worked, as long as your WebSocket was public. Then we introduced the capability for VPC origins, right? So you didn't have to have a public origin server. You could have an internal EC2 instance or a container or a load balancer or whatever it was inside your VPC. And you'd set up a VPC origin, which essentially meant, hey, when I'm trying to hit marksdodgywebsite.com, it would go to CloudFront, it would go to the VPC origin service and route directly into your VPC. So your back-end origin's never publicly exposed. Really nice from a security standpoint. Really sucked for WebSockets for a while. This announcement now supports that through that VPC origin and allows that to work. So it's a really nice one, very edge casey kind of if you've got the use case, but it's really, really nice. Cool, security, identity and compliance. I promise you we are getting closer towards the end. AI. So we have an AWS security agent. It's an AI agent, which is one of our frontier agents, which really helps you do security inspection. So it helps you do pen testing against your applications. And it now also supports a full code inspection and reviews across your repositories and the like, right? So we're just building out the different capabilities that we have in that space. This is like a pigeon pair to our DevOps agent, if you heard it, which really helps with the operational investigations and driving down the time to recovery. Definitely one of the ones I'd look at. If any of you have enterprise support across any of your orgs, DevOps agent is one to jump into now because you will be getting a whole bunch of credits offsetting any spend in that space. Definitely one to look at. In terms of the security agent as well, there's like a 2-month free tier when you start using it. So jump in, have a look. It's a darn side cheaper in my opinion than running a lot of those external pen tests, but it doesn't replace those external pen tests. But in terms of getting to outcome and having that information, cheaper and faster and more of a continuous model as we're seeing across the industry, definitely one of those things to look at. All right, this one's kind of obscure again, but one I wanted to include because I think it was nice. So we've got the AWS Secrets Manager agent. So Secrets Manager is our secrets management service. The agent is something you'd install in a container or an EC2 instance, which helps manage that piece of getting the secrets. This effectively sets up prefetching. So it'll go and get the secrets for you in advance and save you having to do requests all the time out to Secrets Manager and potentially pulling that back in. There's cases in there where that's really, really nice. There's cases where you might not want that feature either if you wanted more of a real-time secrets might change while I'm using it kind of deal. Definitely worth looking at. And one of the nice parts of this was the cross-region or cross-account assumption to do secrets, right? So the service and the agent itself will manage that for you. It's something that normally you'd have to have the secret in the same kind of region and account that you're in. So there's some centralization stuff you could probably do in this case, right, across an organization. All right, and that's where I'd abruptly end it. Does anyone have any questions or things they want to cover? I know it's just announcements, so there's probably no questions. Happy to hand over to the next person.
All right, so I'm not going to use speakers because I figured that the room's small enough, and I'll just talk louder. But if you can't hear me, just put your hand up, and I'll talk louder. So, so I thought I'd start with an audience breaker. Who here is on call right now? 1, 2, 3. Not too bad. And who enjoys being on call? You get paid extra, right? You get paid extra to be on call? Nah, not really. It sucks. Yeah, so on call sucks. But I guess the talk today is there is something worse than being on call, because at least when you're on call, you get you get an alert, and you check your dashboard, and there's some log that tells you where the error is. You deploy something, redrive a dead letter queue, everything's happy, right? And you go back to bed. But what today's about is we're going to talk about 2 financial companies in Australia. And the first one had missing events. So these are just disappearing events that are gone forever. And the second one, maybe worse, we'll see. They had poisoned events. So that also broke a lot of things. So it's going to be fun. And yeah, it kind of ties into event sourcing or event-driven systems in like a distributed environment. I'm Tyson, and currently at ThoughtWorks. And I thought I'd share the first app that I ever built that had real users. It was a password stealer when I was in high school. So I took a screenshot of the Windows 2000 kind of login screen. This was before they had like Control-Alt-Delete to log in, and it was just a VB6 app with like 2 text boxes and a button, and basically like half the school who'd logged into the lab, on the next class, over a period of a couple of weeks, I ended up stealing all their passwords, including the sysadmin as well, who accidentally didn't realize he was logging into my app instead of the Windows OS. I never got caught either, so yeah. And then I kind of set the frame a little bit. Is essentially you want to build, if you're building distributed systems, you want to make it safe, right? So you want a safe distributed system, and the triangle that we're kind of in is, we're either kind of in this event bus world where it's asynchronous and messages are flying around everywhere between your services. And my argument today is that can be safe if your services are not sharing state between services, like it's just going one way. And then if you do have shared state, you need something that allows you to control when services can write. So you need optimistic concurrency control and like a real solid CQRS model. So that's on the bottom right. And yes? CQRS stand for? Command Query Responsibility Segregation. Nice. So essentially you've got writes coming in one way and you've got reads going in the other way. Almost forgot. So you're separating your reads and your writes and your reads, essentially. And it's basically event-driven systems, right? And then the other one is a monolith, right? So if you can't be safe on those two corners, then you need to collapse your services into something that allows you to, what's the word I'm looking for? Atomicity I'm looking for, yeah. We'll get into it. All right, so let's talk about company one. So these guys, they are doing event sourcing intentionally. So they're running on AWS, Postgres, Aura, Lambdas. So it's a serverless architecture. And they've also got SQS to kind of glue everything together. All right, so this is the first missing event kind of scenario for company one. So they have a Stripe webhook that comes through, kicks off a Lambda. And the Lambda it's basically got one job, which is to raise an event to say that the customer's paid. And like Lambdas have a time limit, so they can't run forever. And there's a whole bunch of work that needs to be done, updating reports and all sorts of crap. So the idea was, let's in-queue a message into SQS, and that can SNS, SQS will fan that out to like a whole bunch of different Lambdas to get stuff done. So you can see down the end there, we've got like management, and they're using some reporting tool. And there's a Lambda right down the bottom there that got, it's running like a read projection. It's catching up to the events, and it's updating the report, right? Yeah, so the interesting one for this one was, you might have picked it, is that you've got two separate systems that are not atomic. So you've got Postgres, which is doing a commit to commit the customer paid event. And then immediately after that, in your code, there's like another line of code in Python. It's in-queue message into SQS. And they completely relied on SQS to make sure that report gets up to date. But shit happens. Even in AWS data centers, like network goes down, or there's a bug or something, and sometimes the SQS message didn't get in-queued, and this part didn't happen. So when the report opened up, the custom payment was gone, basically. So the learning for this one was this whole process of kind of a background process of catching up the report and the read projection it's an optimization. Like you can get it done in the background, but when the report runs, it still needs to go off and make sure that it's correct itself. It needs to catch up the event stream by itself. It can't just rely on SQS completely. Yeah, so that was number one. And number two is an interesting one as well. So depending on how much you know about domain-driven design and aggregates, so typically you'd think of like an aggregate as kind of like an entity or something in the real world, right? So this company had like a company ledger aggregate, and they'd write events to the ledger. And then they'd also have a customer account. So each customer have their own kind of own aggregate where you'd store like events to the customer. And when that Stripe payment came through, it wasn't just one event that they'd raise. They'd raise two, maybe more. I can't remember exactly. Maybe it's probably two. And they would raise those events to those two separate aggregates. But the guys, like the principal architect who built the event sourcing infrastructure, he followed really kind of hardcore DDD principles where an aggregate is a transaction boundary. So they ended up running two commits. So you'd write event 1 to company ledger, commit, and then you'd write event 2 to the customer ledger and then commit. So two commits, right? And that didn't always work. So sometimes there was a crash and the second event didn't happen, right? And nobody knew about it. Like it was just, just gone into the matrix somewhere. So there's two solutions to this one that was discussed pretty heavily. The first one was to rework aggregates. So here you can see quite clearly that they've got two aggregates, two events, but there's only really one thing happening. It's a customer payment. So they could have collapsed the aggregates down into just one aggregate, one bucket of events, and then that becomes a single event instead of two. And then you've got your atomic boundary back again. That was hard because they have hundreds of these aggregates and lots of data, so they didn't want to do that. The second one is something that's fairly new in DDD circles, and it's called dynamic consistency boundaries. So it was popularized by, I forget the name, it's an Italian, I forget who did it, but maybe we'll have to search that up later. But basically, the idea behind it was that instead of having a commit per aggregate, you can have like a bucket of events that go to a bunch of different aggregates at the same time, and then you can commit it all or nothing. So you can commit atomically across multiple aggregates. So that's what they ended up doing. They ended up like hacking their code base to support that. So come back to a single commit, yeah. Yeah, so the first two missing events, right? So it's all about like atomicity, right? Atomic. So I was thinking about doing my best Steve Ballmer interpretation. Atomic. Yeah, so if some of you remember this one, but yeah, some of you be like, what is this? Yeah, developers. Yeah, so yeah, the takeaway to remember from those two events is look at your code base, and if you're doing something that crosses your atomicity boundary, like you're doing two things that are separate and they're not atomic, it's not all or nothing, it's probably broken in prod and you don't know about it. All right, so this one's the last one for company one. So they were using Postgres, and they're writing all of their events into this big, massive events table. And every event that comes in, it just gets a new sequence, right? So you got like event 100, 101, 102. So let's walk through it, and we'll see where it broke. So imagine you've got two transactions, and they're both happening concurrently. So time one, we got Postgres. It gives us event number 123. So that statement executes right then, and you get 123 for that event. And then transaction 2 is happening same time, right? So it gets 124. So Postgres is doing the right thing. It's actually giving you, a unique, monotonically increasing sequence. But that assignment of the sequence happens at your statement time. It doesn't happen at commit time. And sometimes in prod, transaction 2 is a little bit faster and it commits first before transaction 1. So you get event 1, 2, 4, and then event 1, 2, 3 come in later in terms of the commit order. So what's the big deal, right? Like, does it really matter? You've got to select star from events. Is it that important? So there's a very specific scenario. So remember, you've got CQRS pattern, right? So you've got events coming in one side, event, 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 event. And then on the other side, you've got this read model that is reading from that table, and it's reading the events, and then there's a loop. It's applying the events to its read model. So there's a bit of a race condition here, right? So imagine you've got a read projection, and it's up to event 122. So what does it do? It goes select all the events where the events are greater than 122, because I've already projected the other ones, right? So I just need the latest. And it sees transaction 2, but transaction 1 is still pending. It hasn't committed yet. And remember, when you commit, that's the visibility boundary for like that row. So this read projection is not going to see transaction 1. It will just see transaction 2. So it sees 1, 2, 4. It goes and projects the event onto its read model, and it stamps its position. It says, I'm now up to 1, 2, 4. I'm all good, right? And then it finishes. The next time it comes back around, what's it going to do? It's just going to say, hey, I need events that are greater than 1, 2, 4. So that 1, 2, 3 that committed in later, it's gone forever. Like there's no projection of that event at all. It's in the events table, but it's not in the read model. Yeah, so there's probably like a sizable percentage of people in the room who are just like, let's just use Postgres for everything, right? And I guess the takeaway for this one is that Postgres and other relational databases do have sharp edges, especially if you're using them for like these kind of append-heavy workloads. So I'm not going to go through everything. There's solutions to it, but they're complex. So I had a slide for it, but I'll skip it today. Yeah, too much detail. And yeah, people are talking about it. It does exist on the internet, but it's a very dense read. It'll hurt your brain for sure. Cool. So yeah, quick summary of company 1. So they didn't have events being committed to the events table. So that was the atomicity boundary. The read projections, they didn't get run because SQS failed to enqueue its message. And also the read projections, because of the Postgres sequence bug, it missed events. And then the solutions for those were atomic. Everything's atomic, right? And also dynamic consistency boundaries. So we have commits across multiple aggregates, so we can't fail. And then there was a few fixes that were floated about the Postgres sequence bug, but they didn't get to it before I rotated off. Cool. All right, so Org2. So these guys were on the microservices. They had they're on Kubernetes, and they had a Postgres database for each service. And the idea was to use Kafka to communicate between all the services. And they intentionally didn't want to use Postgres as the event bus because Postgres is slow and Kafka is apparently really fast. So Kafka it was. Everyone's very keen on it. Yeah, so that's what it looked like. It's my only architecture diagram, kind of. So yeah, they had like a bunch of services. They had the customer dashboard, order payment system, and a web payment service. And then there was a pub sub on the event bus. What could go wrong, right? Okay, so we're going to dive into one of the services. And just imagine yourself, you're in a pod in Kubernetes, and you're running the process. There's a background thread that's ticking away in this loop, And all it's doing is it's just going to go off to Kafka and say, hey, got any messages for me? So it pulls the latest batch of messages, and then it just chucks them in a big loop. There's no ordering of priority. It doesn't really matter. But it just chucks them in a big loop, and then it processes them one after the other, right? And some of that work is basically, we want to update a read projection, or we might want to do some other call to another system or something. And then they had a process log table that they'd commit the UUID, so they had item potency. And that was basically it. And then when the event got processed, there was an ACK. So you'd go back to Kafka and you'd explicitly say, can you bump my consumer offset by 1? Because I'm done with this message. And then when things went bad, you had the DL queue. So that's the dead letter queue. And essentially, it's like if you were trying to process an event, you didn't know what it was, you just throw it into the DL queue. You'd be like, I don't care. Let's keep going, right? Let's keep going. So that was the architecture. OK, so let's walk it through step by step. This one's an interesting one about dead letter queues and how it broke it. So it's a poison event. And we're basically talking about a payment plan for customers. And if you remember, we had a dashboard that the customer could log in and they could see their payments. So the team never implemented foreign keys on their dashboard read projection, because it's just a read model. Like they're just projecting stuff, into the tables. So they didn't care. And then what happened was, you had time 2, we had our backend as a front-end service where a payment plan got created. So you've got this payment plan event, you push it onto the Kafka bus, and it fans out to all the other services. So you have the auto payment service, it got it, and also the dashboard service, it got it. And time 3 is it got to the dashboard service, but no one from the team had updated the dashboard for ages. It was really old, and it saw payment plan created v2, and it's like, I don't know what this is, right? It knew v1, but it didn't know what v2 is. So it just chucked it onto dead letter queue. That's what it's designed for. And it's just like, yep, I'm good. I'll keep processing. Just after that, we have auto payment for the customer. So the auto payment service kicks in, and it processes a payment for that customer, and then it throws that onto the bus. So there's a payment installment of $50 for customer 55. Onto Kafka it goes. And the dashboard consumes it, and it's supposed to update its installments so that the customer, when they log in, they can see that payment in their dashboard. But because the payment plan created event never got created, when the dashboard opened up, it did its join, and there's no payment plan to join to. So that row just, it's gone, and it didn't show up on the dashboard. Now, that might have been the end of the story, but the team, they knew that there's a problem because they got a dead letter queue event. So some poor bastard at 3 o'clock in the morning, he's getting an alert, dead letter queue has got a message on it, wakes up, he's like, dashboard's not deployed, deploys the dashboard, and then redrives the queue, sends that message back over the bus. But it's too late, the damage is already done. Because the installment came through, it tried to join, it couldn't. So that foreign key to the payment plan, it's just null, it's just empty. So the payment plan was not there, did not join the installment. And then when the payment plan event finally got pushed back through to the dashboard, it just inserts the payment plan. It doesn't go through every single installment to fix up foreign keys. So they thought they were good. They had deployed this new version, redrove the events, back to bed, no more alerts. But it was someone from the customer experience team, a month later saying there's 100-something customers, they logged onto their dashboard and they didn't see any of their installments. And they're wondering why they're still getting billed through their bank. So that was a bad day for those developers. Yeah. Yes, go for it.
Didn't they have a queue for the payment?
Yes, 55.
Yeah, exactly, 45. So
Yeah. Let me go back to it.
Process correctly without being up to a plan. they didn't fail?
Yeah, so the payment plan, it didn't process correctly. That went onto dead letter queue.
Yeah, but T5, they were like,
Oh,
I'm gonna
T5?
make a payment to a client that doesn't exist. That didn't
Yeah,
fail.
no foreign keys, didn't fail. So yeah, they were just like, I don't know, it was their fault for being crap. Yeah, it was probably vibe coded, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, don't make mistakes, exactly. Yeah. So there are ways to fix it. Yeah, and you're right. It could have been better. You could have coded it better, for sure. The other way that is kind of an acknowledgement in that dead letter queues are a bit of a hack, especially when you're dealing with messages that have a sequence. So you have to replay messages in a very specific sequence. Otherwise, you break the causality of your system. So you can't just like randomly just apply any event you want. If you're sending out SMS messages to people, like you don't care. But if you're in a microservices environment where event ordering really matters, you're totally screwed. Like, because what happens is your dead letter queue just messes up your ordering essentially. And you only see it when stuff breaks. Like in dev, you probably wouldn't see it. So there is a concept from the Axon framework called a sequenceable DLQ. And what that means is that if you DLQ an event from an aggregate, all the rest of the events for that same aggregate, they also go to the DLQ as well. So then you don't break the causality for that individual aggregate, but at the same time, you're not blocking the entire consumer. You're not stopping the entire service. Yeah, and then the other option you've got is you could just block. So if you remember back in the loop, in this green guy, you could just block the entire thing. And as soon as you get an event that comes through that's broken, you just stop, wait for the dev team to come in, fix whatever problem it was, and then you keep going. And then you're not breaking the ordering. Okay, so last poison event for customer 2. So these guys, they had a order payment service and also a web payment service. And it just happened that, on the odd occasion, that there was an order payment at the same time that a customer, one of those nice customers was logging in, and they're like, I'm going to pay off the remaining amount of whatever's on my account. So we had, customer 44, and they're logging in with their phone, and they say they had $100 of debt left on their account, and they're just like, okay, I'm just going to pay it off. So they're doing that right now. And at the same time, there's an order payment service that's kicking over in the background, and it's like got them for like $30 every week or something. So for various reasons, this company's event bus was fairly slow, even though it was running on super fast Kafka. And there was a few seconds of delay at times between when messages were sent on the bus and when they got off. So imagine these things happening at the same time. And what the services do is they read off the bus and they catch up their event stream. And then they're building their kind of model, their state of what's the current balance for this customer. And they both see that the balance is $100. So they run their internal logic in their service, and they're like, yep, we want to process this payment, $30. You got $100 left on your account. Okay, I can process that payment. And then on the same side, on the web payment service, it's also seeing, yeah, you've got $100, and I see you want to pay $100. Okay, that's great, right? And they both end up committing independently to their Postgres database, atomically, but they're independent. And they both log an event on the bus at the same time. So what ends up happening? Well, you got $130 that this customer's just paid. And same kind of situation. You scale this up to prod with many, many, many customers, and it's a non-zero chance of happening. And yeah, it's great, hey? Yeah, that was the fun one. Yeah, so it's like your typical like whodunit. No one can really figure it out because there's like this time dimension between your services, and you're trying to pick apart logs to see who did what. How do you fix it, right? Well, you either have to if you want to fix it properly, you need some concurrency control. So when you're raising an event for customer 44, you've got two services that are trying to raise the same event. you need to specify what's your expected version on that stream. So like say I'm expecting to see, position 45, and I want to log event 46. And then the other service will do the same thing. And then if 45 is changed, so it's now 46 or 47, that service is the loser, and it has to retry again. So it has to read the latest events, update its projection, and then it has to check the validation routine again, and then it publish another event, right? So it's just like this optimistic concurrency control process. And if you don't have optimistic concurrency control, i.e. Kafka, then you need to collapse your services down to a monolith because they deal with the same aggregate. So there's no way to fix the race condition. Yeah, and then there is a Jira ticket on Kafka. It's 2260, and it's been raised since, what does it say? 2015. So low priority. Obviously, producer optimistic concurrency control is not something that is important to them. Yeah, and then kind of final slides for customer 2. So the question is, if you look at their kind of topology of how they're running their services, they had a database for each service. And they're essentially doing CRUD, right? Like they're just doing, insert, update in their tables. And then they had another kind of sidecar table with an outbox. And the outbox was where the events went. And then the events got shoved over the bus, and essentially Service B relied completely on the events to build its state, its picture of the world. So is that event sourcing? Kinda, like it's event sourcing for Service B. For Service A, it's not, but for event sourcing, it's Service B. So for Service B, it's event sourcing. So yeah, just no optimistic concurrency control. Cool, okay, so yeah, quick summary. DLQ, we had the DLQ, which breaks the event ordering. So that's the causality of the system. And then we had the time of check to time of use, TOCTO, race condition with multiple services that share common state. So that was the second problem. Yeah, and then solutions is just get rid of the DLQ entirely. Just don't use it. It's bad. You can also, you could halt per aggregate. So you can still use the DLQ, but you have to be more smart about it. And then you have to collapse your services. So if you don't have optimistic concurrency control on your event bus, and they're interacting with each other with the same data, you need to collapse. Bring back the monolith. Okay, so you might argue that, like the sharp question from over there is that, like, is these teams just writing buggy software, and do they just suck, right? And like, there's a lot of smart people in these companies. I don't think that they sucked. They were good engineers, but the tools really just have like a mismatch with their workload. So there are databases that exist that are specialized for this kind of workload. So it's append-only CQRS pattern, events, and a read model projection on the other side. So it's not popular, but it's gaining popularity. And so this is my version of it that I've been kind of hacking away as a side project. So it's been going on for a few years now, and it's a Rust-based event store. So the idea was like, there's so many cool things in Linux now that are available. Like we have IOU ring, we have kernel level TLS support. There's like thread per core models, like ScyllaDB. Like there's so much cool shit that you can do on a Linux box that's not just like Java and Kafka. So I just went out to challenge myself, and I actually ran it like a month or two ago on AWS. So I had an i4i instance. So those are the ones, there's the big boys that have an NVMe drive attached physically to the instance. So no shitty EBS volume. And I had three EC2 clients, 40,000 connections hitting the database, and I'm just like sending out this event. So I'm going like, I've got an order placed event, and it can hit like 400,000 writes per second with that infrastructure. So AWS is just an absolute beast with these kind of machines, provided that whatever software you're running on top of it can actually utilize the hardware, what the hardware provides. So and I ran the exact same workload with Kafka. It's 15 times slower. So big difference. Yeah, and I guess the code example I forgot to show is that it's actually, one thing you might notice is that, in Postgres, you've got a statement time and then you've got a commit. But with event stores, those two collapse. So you've just got write events and you've got read events. So you don't have that weird sequence assignment time problem, because that all just happens on the server during a single atomic call. So event stores, you get optimistic concurrency control, your DCBs, dynamic consistency boundaries. Sequences are assigned at commit time. No dodgy stuff there. You can do per aggregate catch-up, so you don't need a deal queue. No Debezium, CDC madness. You've got a watch API, so you can tail the event stream, so you can see what's coming through. And because you've got per aggregate catch-ups, you don't need your deal queue, but also you don't need an outbox table as well, because you're just writing events first. You're not writing to Postgres and then chucking stuff into an outbox. You're just writing events as a first-class citizen, and that becomes your source of truth, essentially, for everything. Yeah, and depending on which event store you use, there's unbounded cardinality. So what cardinality means is something like, if you've ever tried spin up a Kafka cluster and then just throw 300,000 topics onto its config and then just try to start using it, you won't have a good time, because it just runs out of memory. It does not design to handle a large amount of topics. But event stores, they work at the aggregate level. So they are specifically designed to not crash when you've got millions of aggregates. Cool, okay, so last slide. So obviously you're not gonna rip out your entire Kafka microservices architecture tomorrow morning. So I thought I'd give you guys some 2 takeaways that you could try tomorrow to see if your system's broken. So the first one is, I call it atomic boundary chaos injection. So this comes back to when you're building a database, something that's really popular is chaos testing. So you're intentionally adding crashes to parts of your system. And it might just happen 10% of the time, or you might feature toggle it or something. So do this tomorrow, right? Go into your code base tomorrow and add a crash between 2 of your systems. So you've got Postgres and SQS. Just chuck it in there and deploy it to non-prod. Don't even do a PR. And if your team lead doesn't let you do that, then that's the first problem you need to solve. But yeah, and the idea is you're running it in non-prod, hit it with a workload, and just monitor it. Does it crash? Is your data silently being corrupted? Is your read model being up to date? Are your reports reflecting the events that are being written? Yeah, try it out. And then the second one is something called cyclic causal coupling. So this is my invention of a term. I couldn't find anyone talking about it. But what it means is what we discussed with the auto payment and the web payment service. So what you do, grab your team, get a whiteboard, and just draw circles for every service that you've got on, that you've deployed. And then look at your pub sub. So what's your publishers and what topic? And what's your consumers? And then you just draw the arrows, right? If you've got a directed acyclic graph, like a DAG, and it's going in one way, you're good, right? No dangers. If you've got a circle, you've got 2 options. You've got a circle. First one, find a new job. So second one is, you gotta fix it. So that's it. Thank you. So happy to take any questions if you guys got it. Yep.
I'd want on your second problem. I can't remember what you called it.
Second problem? Is that company one?
First company, second one.
Let's find it. That's the dual aggregate.
Yeah. How do you actually do that?
Dynamic consistency boundaries?
Yeah. not the abstract version. Like, what did you actually implement to do that?
Yeah, so it is a small lie in that I did not get to stay on for long enough to have them implemented. That was their plan. But it was a bunch of principal engineers in a room, and then they're kind of panicking on how hard this is going to be. From a practical perspective, if you're using an events table, when you insert, you need to have a where clause where you're tracking two cursor positions. Well, so when you're doing a read projection, you need to track both positions of whatever aggregates you're writing to. So there's like a dynamic SQL that you need to build to essentially fail that update if any of those positions have moved. And you probably want to look at your isolation level for Postgres, like bump it up to serializable or something, and it might impact the throughput of your system as well. So,
If it fails, don't let it queue.
and then if it fails, what you do is you retry. Right, so yeah, what happens is if you've tried to write two events and then one of those positions has changed, you've had some other service come in and snipe you, like while you're working. So you read both of those aggregates again one more time, and then you reproject your read model, validate, and then write the events. Yeah, so it's just a retry loop. It's optimistic concurrency control, but across both aggregates. Yeah, tricky, hey. Yep.
So you almost end up in like a saga boundary then, so things, step functions and all of that, like these three things need to happen or we roll back and try again?
Yeah, so the saga problem is when you don't have optimistic concurrency control and you're just throwing events and you're like, I don't care. And then what happens is the events come through this bus and then you've got to kind of, reverse them out on, when you realize something went wrong. But the saga also has the same problem as well. So, I don't know, there's not a good answer for that.
It gets hard when you've got lots of different systems with different boundaries, right?
Exactly, yes. Yep. Yeah. Yes, mate.
For the example where you said that the dead letter queue was an issue,
Yeah.
what is like the alternative there to stop that from happening? And,
Yeah. So they had good intentions. Like the dead letter queue was to stop head of line blocking. So they had a service, and if there was a problem, you just throw it off to dead letter queue and you just keep on trucking. You keep going through your loop. So the alternative to, if you don't have a dead letter queue and you don't want to break the order, you have to stop. Like hard stop. As soon as you get to a single event that's broken, you just kill that service entirely, throw up your alerts, and hopefully someone comes in the next 10 minutes and fixes it up. Yeah, it's scary, for sure. But is it better than just silently corrupting the data in your system? Yeah, they're both kind of bad, hey?
Yeah, the problem with the data queue is always it's someone else's problem to fix that.
Someone else's problem, yeah. Yeah, and then coming harping back to event stores, the reason why the dead letter queue exists is because you've got this big fire hose of all these different aggregates coming in through the same stream. But with an event store, you can just say, give me the events for customer 44. And if they're broken, you can still independently go off and get customer 45, 46. That's still fine. You're not blocked. But with Kafka, you're kind of blocked because of the way the consumers work with partitions. Yeah.
Is that the same as like SQS first in, first out? Like, is that
It's the same.
Is that the same sort of thing?
Yeah. Essentially, you just got this one big pipe, and you can't independently read or filter based on some kind of condition. Yeah. So. Yeah, not easy.
We have this much pizza and garlic bread.
Let's do it. All right, thank you guys.
Hello everybody, my name is Greg Luxford. I'm a dad, a husband. I drive a WRX and I'm in the WRX Club, Queensland. I'm a very proud owner of that. But I also love helping the community, which is why I'm a member of the Community Builders. I'm really passionate about doing that. And today I'm actually going to talk about a really kind of hot topic, and that is burnout. The reason this is super important is that it really does affect our industry, quite badly, in fact. I've been through it myself more recently this year, and I'm still recovering from that. I happen to work for FinClear, and I'm a senior cloud architect for FinClear. So what we're going to learn today is a little bit about what is burnout, how to identify the signs of burnout, some of those impacts of burnout, some of the factors in it, our role in burnout as well. We have to consider this. A little bit on identity and values, and some tips for recovery. Why are we learning this? Because it's actually a serious condition. It's common, very, very common in our industry. There are people in our immediate circles that we know are going through some of this stuff as well. And the hardest bit is to identify it. But we need to understand the impacts, learn to identify some of the signs that maybe we might be starting to go down this route, and the understanding the journey to recovery. So what is burnout? Well, to really summarise, if you have a consideration of this image here, I wish it was. But if you consider like the end of the rally, everyone's super pumped, everyone's excited, you've got the crowd cheering on the driver. Driver wants to have a bit of fun, he needs to let loose a little bit, so he does a big burnout in front of the crowd, everyone goes wild. That's amazing, right? Super fun. What's actually happening to the driver could be this. Absolutely on fire, just, this is really, really hard. So burnout itself is a state of severe emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. It's caused by prolonged, unmanaged, and chronic workplace stress. That's one cause. It leaves individuals feeling drained, cynical, detached, ineffective. Right? So it's actually no good for your employer. And it results in that reduced performance and loss of personal accomplishment. So it's very hard for someone going through burnout to actually understand and comprehend the accomplishments that they've had. And while it's not a medical disease as such, it can increase the risk of mental health issues like depression and anxiety. So when we think about burnout, it's quite often correlated with stress, but it's prolonged stress. So the difference with stress and burnout individually is that stress is, there's too much of it. There's too much of stuff going on, I'm overwhelmed. That's fine. But burnout is when you don't have enough F's to give. You're done. You've already passed that point. It has the causation of long-term stress and carrying too much. It's a point of exhaustion, and it might not be one moment, but it could be a lead up to something big, like a big event that happens. And it manifests physically. So things like heart palpitations, feeling very anxious about going to work and things like that. Not being able to sleep because you can't switch off because you're constantly thinking of all the things that you need to do. And this just feeds and feeds and builds and builds. So it increases your anxiety. Now, outwardly, people may see it, but not from the perspective that you have. Because quite often what they're seeing is your mask that you're putting on to just cope. So some of the things that feed into this are things like job demand, so unmanageable workload, too fewer resources to manage that workload that's coming away. And we might say, oh, it happens all the time. Sure, it can happen in short bursts and that's okay, but when this is a prolonged period of time, that's when you start to hit the brakes. And it can manifest in ways such as your job role. So if you think about if your role is not very well defined and in a lot of cases, let's say the title of principal is used, you go, well, what does that mean? Well, you solve problems. Okay, solving problems. What, any problem? Like, where do we draw the line? So if you're not sure about what your actual role is, then that can cause a state of panic as well, and unsure. And it can affect your workplace relationships. So you might have conflicts with colleagues, you might have conflicts with your boss, with your managers, and other co-workers. So if we think about what are some of the signs, because now we understand that, okay, this is what it is, so what are the signs? So in physical, it could be constant fatigue. You could say, well, that's fine, I'm just overworked. And you'll make excuses in your head for all these things as well. But you could have insomnia, frequent illness, because your immune system's shot. You can get headaches and muscle pains and things, and you might say, well, yeah, but it's okay. If this is happening all the time, start to think about, am I actually starting to head this way? In terms of emotions, it's feeling trapped, just defeated, depleted is the best term that we can use there, because you're just depleted. There's nothing more to give. And behavioural, so things like procrastination, like I just don't want to deal with this now. I'm just going to kick that can down the road. Well, how many cans do you kick down the road? At some point you're going to have to face them, right? But that's what you feel like. You can isolate yourself from colleagues. So you might say, oh, I've gone from working in the office, 4 days a week or whatever, I'm just going to scale this back. I'm just going to start to work from home. Next thing you know, you're working home 5 days a week. You're not talking to anyone or seeing anyone in person. You might be going, I'm not going to worry about going to that user group. I just don't want to be around people. So you can isolate yourself. And it just feeds on itself over time. Those symptoms persist for a long time. And so it can be really hard for someone who's battling with it. But outwardly, they could be seen as being very successful. And they may be getting pats on the back, right? Wow, look at the amazing job you're doing. That feeds, that keeps you going. So, well, I'm doing a good job, so I'll just keep going. It's not characterized by short-term discomfort. So think about short-term things. Yeah, you have a bad day here and there. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you're going through burnout by any means. It's just a bad day. People have bad days. Things go wrong, constantly. And that's fine. But it's when you start to really feed on that and go, today's just going to be bad. It's, yesterday was bad, so today must be bad. It follows a pattern, and it's a thought process that's going on in your head, and that's something that other people can't see. So the impacts of burnout can be on things like relationships and placing significant others lower in priority to your work, for example. I was shocking at this. Outwardly speaking, I was in the ambassador program, the community builders program, kicking ass at work, doing an amazing job. Sure, but at what expense? For me, it was placing my family second. And not everyone wants to do that. And it can be hard to talk about because I don't like what I did. And it took me a long time to recognize that I was actually doing this. And it actually happened after my sort of burnout moment. So in a point of reflection and realization. So you might struggle with your emotions too. So something that should be a meh is a fireball moment. Right? So it can be something that's just not in tune with the situation. So your home life often suffers more than the workplace because your home life is seen as like, oh, I can't behave like this at work. If I was to behave like this at work, they'd fire me. But at home, you don't think that actually that's not okay. This isn't acceptable, but you don't realise that at the time. So it's not a self-awareness thing. don't know that it's happening. Your anxiety increases, so that sleeplessness starts kicking in, that sort of stuff. Very hard to switch off. And depression, so you start to lead into those negative thoughts. It's very hard to find the positivity in life, in the positivity in all the things that you're doing. Yeah, I did that, yeah, okay, whatever. But actually that was a really good thing and that should be cause for celebration. But you're not thinking that, just, yeah, whatever. And lack of self-care and poor health. So you might start eating like crap, you might stop exercising. You're just not looking after yourself because you're so ingrained with that process. And some of those factors in burnout are things like lack of control over your work tasks or decisions. So you might be in a senior position, but you're not part of leadership. So leadership's making all these decisions around you, but you're responsible for the output. You like didn't have a say in what's going on. So if I didn't have a say in it, then I'm disconnected from what I'm actually doing or the task that's been given to me. Am I senior? Am I not senior? How do I get to leadership if I'm not given the opportunity? So you can have a lot of those thought processes going on. Lack of recognition or rewards. So this can happen when you're doing more and more and more at work, for example, but it's not recognized that you're going above and beyond. It's just seen as, oh, well, people that are volunteering to help you, they don't need to do stuff because you're the one who's going to go and get it done. So they don't feel like they need to worry about helping you. You've got this, mate. Right? No. You don't have this. They need to help. That's why they're helping. So you need to sort of understand that process. So you can cause this problem yourself by being excellent. Go figure. Monotonous, high pressure or chaotic environments. Hey, welcome to consulting. Poor work-life balance. Oh, also, welcome to consulting. Amazing. Pressure to perform at a consistently high level. Like, hey, you knocked that thing out the park. Can you just go and do that again? Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, sure. No worries. That was awesome. You did even better that time. Can you keep doing that? I guess that's part of my role now. Yeah, sure. And you can see a pattern forming of what I'm talking about here. Seemingly never-ending task list. How many people have that? Well, when is done? Those Jira tickets just keep going, right? That never stops. Look at that backlog. And yeah, your workplace role. So actually, depending on what your role is in your workplace can have a dramatic effect on how that's exacerbated, right? And we can see how you might be in a junior position, you've got the ability to just kind of to go, okay, I do that job and that's it. And then you move up to the senior level and it's like, well, you kind of do both. You do that job and then you do a bunch of other stuff. And as you move up the chain, that gets more and more and more and more. So next thing you know, the junior guy's going, I'm sweet. And you're sitting there on fire, losing whatever hair's left in your head. Well, that was me. So interesting. So I've talked about all these external factors. What's my role? What was my role in my own burnout? I've started mentioning a bunch of things. So yeah. Interestingly, constantly saying yes. Yeah, I constantly said yes, didn't I? Yeah, no worries, sure, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Oh, that's right, you were going to help me do that task. Oh, you didn't? Oh, well, the task isn't going to get done by itself, so I guess I'm doing that task too. So not having any boundary. Perfectionism. Partly a trade-off of being in the army is there's a lot of perfectionism, and especially in training. So I had the unfortunate situation where I spent 4 years in training. And in 4 years, it's pretty indoctrinated into yourself to say, okay, that white glove that they use for room inspections, bouncing a coin off your bed sheets, polishing your brass, making sure there's no fingerprints or any residue of your brasso on it. All those kind of things, right? It feeds into how you behave outside of that environment. And that was me. I was constantly in that state of like holding on to that stuff. And if someone was to ask me, actually, pause. I'm not going to talk about that yet because it's coming up. I'm going too far ahead of myself. But striving for excellence. And striving for excellence can be a good thing, right? That's how I built my career. So it was very successful for me, in fact. But striving for excellence over and above other things that maybe I should have valued a little bit higher. Just taking on too much, not enough delegation, not enough saying no, not enough saying, well, you put your hand up to go and do that, so that's not my responsibility. There's a difference in accountability and responsibility, and if your boss is holding you accountable, you can't delegate it. If your boss is holding you responsible for something, that's fine because you can delegate that to somebody else. You can delegate responsibility, you can't delegate accountability. There's a difference. Being unwilling to let go. Significant lack of boundaries. A lack of identity, partly because of my military service and the way that I was released from that service, meant that I really struggled with my identity. So it's very easy as a soldier when someone says, who are you? Oh, I'm a soldier. That's your identity, right? Not really. Misaligned values, big time. Your values play into a big part of who you are, how you act, and how it affects you in your life. So let's move on to that topic of identity and values, because our identity tells us who we are. Now, it's actually a really hard question if you think about it, if you pause and really think about it, and someone says, who are you? Now, we're quite often ingrained into speaking about our role. You would have noted that when I spoke about who I was at the start of this presentation, I didn't introduce myself as, hi, I'm Greg. I work for FinClear as a cloud solution architect, and yeah, I'm in community builders, so I'm a community builder. No, that's a role. That's not actually who I am. What you got to hear was a little bit more about me, didn't you? I'm a husband, I'm a father. Yeah, I've got a nearly 18-year-old son. Like, where does the time go? But see, that's who I am is a lot more than the role that I have. It's not defined by my role. And it might sound really basic for me to say that. You go, of course. But next time someone asks you, when you're being introduced around a barbecue, and they say, oh, my name is such and such, what do you do? It's an interesting topic, isn't it? Because that's how we learn to integrate with it. How do you do it as a kid? You don't do it by your role, do you? Because you're a kid, you don't have one. You don't know. So what do you do when you introduce yourself and make friends? Hi, my name's such and such. You want to be friends? Yeah, let's be friends. Cool, do you want to go and do this together? Yeah, wicked, let's do that. We lose that as adults, right? But as a kid, friendship, just done. So easy. And we miss it and we forget about it. What we value and what we believe in, they're very centric to us. And how we see ourselves. So self-reflection of what you're doing, like I had very low self-esteem, which may not have been seen outside, because I'm confidently standing up here talking about all this stuff, presenting technical topics. Last year, just going from the presenting at this user group, in fact, to getting a lightning talk at Sydney Summit, to then running a security workshop in reInvent with AWS, all in the 1 year. Pretty impressive if I talk about it in those terms. But when someone said, how excellent are you? Because I was holding on to this role or this value of excellence. Oh, I'm doing all right. Really? You're not doing amazing? How much do you value yourself, mate? It's a good question. Kind of don't. I think I'm just average. Nothing special about me. That's true. I'm not special. I'm just like everyone else. But I have to take stock that I did some amazing things last year, and last year as a growth was massive, probably the biggest I've had in my whole career. But I didn't value that. So it's very interesting. So when we think of values, they're different to what we value. Values are the things that you hold near and dear to your heart. When I left defence and someone said, what are your values? Courage, initiative, teamwork. Rattled them off. Simple, right? Because that's the army values. But they weren't my values. My personal values were different to that. But I couldn't identify what those values were. That's a significant shift, right? Like that's a significant portion of your identity, who you are as a person and what you value. Now, I'm going through this with my son at the moment, and his value being that he does have ASD, but he was talking about values and he valued freedom. The freedom to be able to live the way that he wants to live. I said, sure, but don't you think that that's different to what, like I can see you valuing freedom, right? Who doesn't? We live in a free country. Got a lot of freedoms associated with us living here and just living and being here in Australia. Yeah, sure. But if freedom is significantly true to your core, what does that lend itself to in a role sense? Police, fire, ambulance, defence, yeah? The people who uphold our freedoms. So you would think that that's what he would be gravitating towards, following in his dad's footsteps. No, he doesn't want to do any of that stuff. So I had to have the question with him, well, is this your value or do you just value freedom? You see the difference. They're two different things. And it's really to the core of who you are. So values are a core belief system that drives your behaviour, that drives how you see yourself in the world, and how the world sees you based on you living your values and demonstrating those values. They're guided but not the same as morals. So we can question morals, we can have those things, but they come more from like your background as a child, religious beliefs, those kind of things define those morals, but not your values. They're two different things. They influence our behaviours and actions. They can change over time. It's a myth to believe that your values, you must uphold them your entire life. You go through many phases. Yeah, as a single person, your values are very different to your values when you have a family, for example. What about when you're dating towards being married? They're different. Your values will change over time, and that's okay. You need to be okay with those values changing. You don't have to hold on to them without letting go. And the key is identifying them, right? And your values can be measured. So are your values smart? And by smart, we're talking about specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. They must be. Because let's think about excellence as an example, one that I was holding near and dear to my heart. Right? When do you achieve it? How specific is it? At what point do I go, I've achieved it? I'm doing it. It's never achievable. Right? So you're chasing a dream that you can't ever fulfill. It's not measurable because I could say, oh, my last year, oh, that was all right. Someone else might measure it differently. They might measure it as, well, that's pretty excellent if you ask me. Sure. Do I feel the same way? Not really. I'm proud of it, but that's it. That's all I felt. It's never achievable. It's never something that you can really achieve because it's constantly changing and it becomes what you define it to be. which might be unrealistic. Is it relevant? Is excellence as a value relevant? Not really. You could be mediocre, right? You could float through life and be completely happy. No problem, right? Is it relevant to your function as a human being? Absolutely not. Gives you a little bit of fulfillment, right? A little bit of that adrenal, pumping stuff. But it's certainly not time-bound. So you can't measure it, you can't maintain it. So you've got to wonder, is this a value that you want to hold on to? Or is this driving some of the behaviour that maybe led to my own burnout? The truth is, it did. So this is my role. I was holding on to the wrong values. So actually taking the time to understand that and reflect on that made a massive difference. If I'm truly putting family first, which is my primary value right now, if I'm truly putting family first, that means putting them first. That means actually making a differentiation, a hard boundary between work and family life. Right? And that's easier said than done in some roles, because we talked about today about being on call, and the people putting their hands up and saying they're on call. How do you separate that stuff? I know I've dealt with that. I spent many, many years of my career on call, 3 or 4 weeks at a time. Then it's not really living. You're never really present in the moment. You can't plant your feet. You can't anchor yourself in the moment because you've always got this constant thing behind the scenes. So your role can significantly determine how prevalent you might be and susceptible you might be to burnout. Perfectionism is another one. Letting go of perfectionism is so liberating. So liberating. When you think about perfectionism, again, what is perfect? When is it ever perfect? It's never perfect. You're going to have bad days and stuff like that. That's going to introduce a little bit of I'm angry now. We're supposed to be perfect, right? The sun's shining and everything. What's this rain going? Where'd this come from? It was going to be a perfect day. What happened? Right? It sets a mindset into motion of negativity. You can't measure it. It's not achievable. It's not relevant because perfect doesn't exist. There's always imperfections. And embracing those imperfections is actually what makes us human. So if you're never embracing it, you're not actually living. You're not being human. And you can't time bound it. When do you reach perfection? So think about your values as being time bound. So if your values are not smart, how do you know you're living it? Yeah? Just like the cat there, I went, what? Really? Wow. So quite a profound, sense of discovery there. So if we start getting into tips for recovery. So prioritize your recovery. I quit my job. I'm not saying you should quit your job, by the way. Please don't take that advice, okay? It depends on the role, to be frank, and to be fair. It depends on the role that you're doing, right? Because your role, you may be understanding that your role in your own burnout could be something that's in your control and not necessarily all external. And there's some things that you could do in your existing role to stay put and to stay in that environment, right? And to improve. And this could actually lead into things like promotion and things like that and make it a fulfilling career. Right? Unfortunately, I wasn't in that position in my previous role. I didn't have anywhere to go. So for me, it was a case of park that, leave that. I prioritised my recovery. I went and sought professional help. I reached out to, you might have employee assistance programs. Might have heard of that. People, HR like to talk about it like, oh yeah, it's this thing that you got, and if you need help, you can call them. Call them. Actually call them. Super helpful. I spoke to a counsellor and she said, you need professional help, mate. You're beyond me. Interesting, right? Bit profound, bit sort of in your face. Really? I have to go see, I can't just talk to a counsellor for a bit and just vent. No, you're actually burnt out, mate. Okay. Interesting. What should I do? Go get a medical certificate. Stop work. Do that. Start there. Ooh, okay, this is serious, right? But I took it seriously. I went and did that, and that was how I started on that recovery process. Prioritize your tasks, right? Little things like, is that really important? Do I really need to burn my ass off trying to get a pull request done tonight, or no one's going to see it till tomorrow anyway? Why am I staying back late doing this stuff? I can park it for tomorrow. I can prioritize. I can reprioritize in my head. Like, it's not, the world's not ending. There's not people dying. Yeah, it's not, I'm not a surgeon on an operating table doing open heart surgery. No, I'm making a pull request for some code to push to build a firewall policy. The world's not ending. So why am I thinking of it in catastrophic terms? Reprioritize. Definitely seek help. Absolutely seek help. You can't do it on your own. You need support. Listen to others, right? You might have others that'll tell you, hey, I'm quite a bit concerned about you. I've seen some behavioural changes in you recently. That's a red flag. That's a time for you to stop. Go, hang on, this isn't just in my head anymore. Someone noticed something. In my case, it was being told like, hey, you're overreacting, dude. Like, what the hell's your problem? And that was an interesting take on what was going on. The world was kind of on fire for me. Yeah, I overreacted. Wouldn't you? Lots of external pressures and things like that. Special needs kids, things like that. Yeah, you can start to see there's lots of factors that play into it that may not just be work. And not having enough to manage all of that stuff is so bad. It's the worst feeling ever. Very depressing. Now, I'm sorry, I've just brought everyone down. But at the end of the day, implementing those boundaries and making those boundaries, one of the things that really helped me, I turned off all my notifications. It might sound counterintuitive. Hey, we're in a tech industry, don't we have to be up to date? Yeah, but it's on my terms. Yeah? Interesting turn of events, that. Did I actually need to know all those things, all those notifications that were coming my way? No, I didn't. My phone doesn't buzz anymore. I can sit there and have a conversation with my wife, with my kids, and be absolutely present. Because the last thing that you can be present in is when your phone's vibrating in your pocket. What if that's important? Oh, hang on. I'm waiting on that email. Oh, and you're having a talk to your kid. Do you think that you're 100% present in that conversation at the time? Or do you reckon your mind might be elsewhere? You're not present. So having that away, setting those hard boundaries, things like Teams and stuff like that, it's very hard to do because you need to have these for work, right? But turn them off after a certain time. Yeah, so I set hard boundaries, like 6 p.m, that's my time, buddy. Work's not paying me for any time past there. Yeah, I'm on salary. I'm not on paid by the hour. So why am I constantly flitting back to work after 6? That's a problem. So implementing those boundaries really helps. And some things that really help me, these are some statements that were made through my recovery from others. So I don't take credit for it. I could, but I won't. So emotions are data, not directives. Listen to your emotions, but they don't direct what you should do, what you should be, and how you should react. They are just data, but they're there for safety, right? And they tell you a story. So listen to them. But it's your choice on how you react to that situation. If you expect everyone to do the things the way you want, you will always do the work. Oh, welcome to consulting. That was me. That was me. I even noted that down in my book. My goodness, this is me. This is me. all events are neutral until we assign meaning to them. So yeah, you might be having a bad day, you stub your toe, you're on the way out the door, the cat's vomiting, you're going, oh, I've got to do all this stuff. Where's my sock? Oh, I don't know. Right, there's all these different things, but at the end of the day, they're all individual. They're just events, right? And if we stub our toe and we go, damn, I stubbed my toe. All right, well, it's over now. Move on. Yeah, the cat's vomiting. Oh, come on. All right, clean it up, whatever. Where's my sock? I don't know. Very different, right? It's a different mindset, and the way that you react is significantly shaped by just using that. Hey, as long as I don't assign events, like if you assign all of those things and go, man, I'm going to have a bad day, very different mindset. You're entering the day in a negative mindset already. So anything else happens, it's just perpetuating. It's just getting worse and worse. So then you're frustrated, right? But you don't have to be. They're all individual events. No one's out there to try and make all this stuff happen. It just happens. It's like, yeah, whatever. So what? The event happens and it's gone. It's only when you assign meaning that it actually causes a problem. And this wonderful statement that was made to me, which was fear. So this is built around fight or flight, right? So if you want to flight, you go F everything and run. Yeah? Because that's your flight response. I want to get out of here. You're like, stuff this, I'm done. Right? And that might be the I quit moment. Again, not saying you should quit. Don't take that advice. That's not what it is. But thinking about things like, well, why don't I change that mindset from F everything and run, F everything and recover? Yeah, like that's the prioritization. The 4 Ds. Think about this when you're looking at tasks and those tasks that are overwhelming. Well, you have 4 choices with any task. Do it now, defer it because you want to do it later, delegate it because I can't be asked doing it and I want someone else to do it, or delete it. The task doesn't need to be done. Stop worrying about it. Get rid of it. It sounds simpler than it is, but it can be done. And you can apply this logic to a lot of things in your life. So implementing those boundaries, work versus home. When you're home, you're home. Make it a habit of being home, being present. Plant your feet, be where your feet are. Yeah? If your feet are at home, be home. Don't worry about work. Right? Work's always going to be there. Still going to turn around the next day, but I'm not there now. Right? Very hard when you're working from home, by the way. But think about how you might be able to separate some of those boundaries, like your home office, for example, and maybe don't put your gaming PC in your home office. Maybe think about putting it outside of that, so that when you're in that space, when you're playing your games, when you're doing that stuff, you're doing it with a separation from work. You're not in the same you're not in the same space as work. So there's things that you can do. They sound really like, yeah, whatever, mate. Cool. Don't expect you to follow any of this stuff, but just know that there are things that you can do that are in your power to do, even when you feel so helpless with it. It's just a matter of reframing some of your mindset. Pause. Can't stress this enough. You've got an emotional state, yeah? And someone sends you a bad email or a bad, Teams, and you just pause. No. Am I assigning meaning to this? Don't type angry. Yeah? Don't type angry. Draft your email. Don't send it. Go for a walk, come back, reread it. Yeah? Don't just burn it. I have been that guy. I tore into it. But realizing after the fact of, probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. So, and this was, of course, at the height of when I was completely out of control. But who you want to be. We have choices that we make, and if you think of a pathway, you make a towards choice of who you want to be. Do you want to be that real angry dude that no one wants to be around? Or do you want to be the nice guy? Probably a bad example. But what if you wanted to make a positive choice towards something that you wanted to fix, right? And there's a choice path that presents itself where you could go back to those negative ways, or you could make a choice to go the positive route. Yeah, it's the difference between someone cutting you off in traffic and you brrr on your horn to going, maybe they're just having a bad day. Maybe they just got lost. Again, pause, that little pause. What a difference. Events past, I'm not going to give it meaning. Whatever, no one died. Move on. So there's little ways that you can do to just help with that mindset. Reduce that extra mile effort, yeah? Because no one cares at the end of the day. They do not care. You find this out when you leave your company, by the way, about that extra mile effort and who gave a crap. No one. No one actually gave a crap. Interesting. So why did I burn out? What was it? Wasn't worth it. So why bother? You can always see this after the fact, by the way. But seek professional help. Absolutely seek professional help. I am not a psychologist. All right? Don't pretend to be. This is my own journey. Just reflecting back some of the things that we have. And if we think about the things like the circle of control, the only things that we can control in our little circle is our focus, our thoughts, our reactions. Yeah, so you can't control your feelings, but your reactions to your feelings you can. Your choices, what choices you're making, and your actions that you take. Because you can control all of those things. That influences your circle of influence by what you do. Yeah? So you influence those other things around you. But then you've got the circle of concerns, right? And you cannot control the circle of concerns. It's not that they're useless. They're data points. But you can't control them. So if you can't control them, then the worry that you're placing onto those things is useless. It's wasted energy. Guard your energy. Make your energy your own. Yeah? So that you can be the best person you can be. Finally, you're not alone. This is important because when you're going through this, I can tell you now, you feel very alone, right? But it's not until you start speaking about it, and this is why I'm speaking about it here today, is that you are not alone. When you start talking about burnout and you start talking and reflecting it back to your circle, to your immediate circle, you'll find that there are actually a large number of people in your circle that will be going, oh yeah, me too. Yeah, I've been really feeling like that. Right, talk about it. I know us blokes, terrible at talking about our feelings, right? Sure, but this isn't feelings. This is actually a state of mind, a state of what's going on. So, yeah, talk about it, right? And make a choice. Make a conscious choice. Do you want to keep going down this route that's leading you to burnout, or do you want to take a different path? But you have to make the choice. It's your choice. So you have to do it. No one else can. So it's completely up to you. I wish everyone a wonderful day ahead. I know it's late and everyone wants to get home. Much appreciated. But thank you for listening. I hope that you got something out of this. And I hope that you can start to recognize maybe some of these things that might be affecting you or might be affecting someone that you know. But please talk about it. The more we do, the more we normalize it, the easier we can all reach a safe space. Thank you.